Ohio State's pro day yesterday was an amazing day for the football program itself. The star of the show was not even a player who's going to be taken off the board in this year's NFL draft. It was, interestingly enough, but in a certain sense also expected, it was quarterback QJ Stroud, who, per NCAA guidelines, has to stay another year. He's likely going to go off to the NFL after the 2022 season, in which I think that he will have a big year. Nonetheless, the pro day overall, not just for Stroud, but for wide receivers Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson, for running back Master Teague, for offensive lineman Thayer Munford and Nicholas Petit-Frere, for defensive tackle Haskell Garrett, and other names that I, either don't know or, we all know there's a plethora of players at pro day. Anyways, I mentioned the majority of them, the ones that we all know, the guys who are likely going to be taken off the draft board first, specifically the wide receivers, Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson. But this pro day, and the reason I'm making this video is the pro day, just hearing what I've heard, seeing some stuff, mainly watching the coaches via video, just, talk about their players and reading articles, some of which I'm going to read to you today. This pro day is an example, and it's a showcase for why Ohio State is the program that it is. Extreme offensive talent, development, Chris Olave being a 3-star who is now likely going to be a first-round wide receiver. It's some crazy stuff. Garrett Wilson is a freak athlete, and what's a testament to Ohio State's eliteness and why they are who they are is the fact that you have QJ Stroud, who hadn't thrown a collegiate pass before 2021 and who is not even eligible to be drafted, is the player that he is. Like, he's an elite passer. He might be Ryan Day's best passing quarterback by the time everything is said and done. He might be. And Ryan Day has produced Hassan Haskins, who's still in the NFL, though he hasn't had the best career. Justin Fields is, I'd say, probably too early to evaluate, but he's a freak athlete in himself, and most of his attributes were developed by Ryan Day at Ohio State after he transferred there. So that's one reason, and there are many other reasons as well, and we're going to be talking about this today in this video. If you're new to the channel, whether you're an Ohio State fan or a college football fan, I encourage you to hit that subscribe button. I'm an unbiased Michigan fan, just reporting on mainly Big Ten football, but I occasionally cover all different kinds of topics within college football, for the most part talking about, the season, predictions, analysis, but I'll occasionally touch on recruiting and touch on some fun topics as well. So hit that subscribe button, like this video, comment your thoughts down below as the video progresses, and also make sure to hit that notification bell most importantly. I do have a somewhat inconsistent schedule, as I am in school and have another job as well. So if you want to see more of my content, hitting that notification bell really helps. But now that that's out of the way, let's get down to business and discuss Ohio State's pro day. First and foremost, we are going to be talking about just how the day overall went from more so of a summary perspective. And first and foremost, that is going to be from an article by 11 Warriors. Skull Session is the title of this article. It's a short one. QJ Stroud stole the show. Ohio State was bad around the rim. That's basketball stuff. We're not going to be talking about that. And Garrett Wilson gets sentimental. So it just talks about how QJ Stroud, he definitely stole the show, and his throws looked good. He's not draft eligible, but Chris Olave or Garrett Wilson, one of them said that, just Stroud being the quarterback and throwing them passes makes their job as receivers so much easier. And Matt Miller, who I believe is an NFL draft scout, he asked an evaluator at Ohio State's pro day who looked good, and the first thing the evaluator said was the quarterback. he's amazing. And the QB is CJ Stroud, and he's not even draft eligible, which is again a testament to Ohio State's not just elite program, but their quarterback development. And the quarterback development is something that is so important. And despite the fact that it's obviously important, it is so overlooked by plethoras of programs. Like you look at Wisconsin, you look at Iowa, and Iowa has produced some somewhat solid quarterbacks themselves, mainly NFL backups or just good college QBs, but like Wisconsin, for example, often a quarterback away from greatness, and it's almost like they don't even realize it or don't care. My own school in Michigan hasn't produced an NFL, caliber QB since Chad Henne, and Chad Henne has mostly been a career backup guy. Though solid, he's still a career backup guy, and he went into the draft nearly 15 years ago. The most of the Big Ten, which is why Ohio State dominates the Big Ten, most of the Big Ten doesn't care for QBs as well as Ohio State does, or develop them nearly as well as Ohio State does. And that's a huge part of the reason why Ohio State is so successful. Overall, is they're in a conference that prioritizes almost everything but quarterback, and yet Ohio State is able to prioritize offensive talent, development. They recruit better than the rest of their conference, and they also recruit better quarterbacks than the rest of their conference for the most part, but then develop them much better. At least the past has told us, and the present under Ryan Day. And then Bill Landis tweeted that this wasn't part of the initial Pro Day script for Olave and Wilson. They just added it in at the end, and it was CJ Stroud giving them passes. And a quote from Stroud said, and it was about one of his passes, "The one to Garrett was pretty sweet. I appreciate them letting me show off a little bit." And indeed, he did show off. And Garrett Wilson also got a little sentimental and just talked about how he hopes this isn't the last pass that he caught from CJ Stroud, which is, pretty awesome. It also shows the culture there. So that's just kind of, an introduction, leaning in on it and discussing some of my own thoughts. We're going to read a few more articles that go much more in depth, some pro day analysis along with my thoughts. Number one being CJ Stroud stole the show. And we already talked about this a little bit, but we're going to get more in depth, talk about, the perspective of him from 2021 in his progression. And to do that, I think it's appropriate to read an article by ESPN by Ben Baby. The title, CJ Stroud's throws to NFL draft prospects Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave impress at Ohio State Buckeyes Pro Day. Ohio State's Pro Day offered a sneak peek at one of the best NFL draft prospects for 2023. Buckeyes quarterback CJ Stroud made 55-yard throws look effortless inside the school's indoor practice facility on Wednesday. I know that me personally probably couldn't throw a pass more than 20 yards, and it would have zero accuracy. With representatives from all 32 teams watching, including a few NFL head coaches, Stroud threw passes to wide receivers Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave, both ranked in the top 25 on ESPN analyst Mel Kiper Jr.'s big board, which is it's an NFL draft projection. Olave believes Stroud, who is a year shy of being draft eligible, should be projected as the top QB in the 2023 class. And it really, between him and Bryce Young, I don't know who to pick. Bryce Young is obviously Alabama, helps him. He's arguably actually worked with inferior offensive talent. If you watched Alabama this past season, there was no question who had the better supporting cast between Bryce Young and CJ Stroud. And I mean that 100%. Bryce Young was, a lot of the times, a one-man army in specific circumstances. The Georgia game, he had Jamison Williams and John Mechie, but still, it was a lot of him in that SEC championship game, and that really solidified him as, at least this past season, probably the best quarterback in the land. But Stroud has the advantage of being developed by Ryan Day and also, being experienced with those better wide receivers to a certain degree is going to also, in the NFL, you have most of your starters are going to be guys who are uber talented by college standards. And Stroud, keep in mind, is also, I think, a year younger than Bryce Young, or they're in the same, I think they might be in the same class. I don't know exactly. They're pretty similar in age, though. But anyway, back to the article. I thought he was already, Olave said, regarding him thinking that Stroud is the best QB in the 2023 draft class. CJ is a rare talent, man. I say that from my heart. I know he's been through a lot, and I'm glad he's in the position he is in today. Texans coach Lovie Smith, Washington Commanders coach Ron Rivera, and Titans coach Mike Vrabel were among those who saw Stroud throw almost exclusively to Wilson and Olave. And after a rocky start this past season, Stroud led the Buckeyes to a win in the Rose Bowl and a number 6 ranking in the final AP poll, which for Ohio State fans is probably like, gritting your teeth because the season didn't go exactly as planned. But you look at CJ Stroud and his progression and the offense, and you have to be proud of that offensive group. You just have to be. Anyone who watched the games knows that it was mainly Ohio State's defense that often would put the offense in bad positions. The offense was young all around, which resulted in them making some mistakes. But Stroud, I think, had the highest QB rating according to ESPN. He's uber efficient. And just because his receivers are good and can carry him to a certain degree, you still have to have amazing accuracy, elite talent, and knowledge to make some of the throws that he has made and to make some of the reads he's made. I mean, even against Michigan constantly pressuring him. Did he throw a pick? No. He didn't even come. He only had one. There was one pass where he almost threw a pick. It was actually a dropped pick, really. That was it. He had all the pressure in his face. The Utah game, he was picked off once. Besides that, flawless. Nebraska was probably his only bad game later in the season, which was especially when it mattered. Later in the season is when, he's gotten some experience. There's not necessarily an excuse to perform poorly. And then his games in the earlier part of the season, he did struggle, but he showed a lot of progression after being rested in what I think was the Akron game. Showed a lot of progression indeed. He's now one of the best, and you could debate that he is the best QB returning from last year. Stroud and former quarterback Cardale Jones were those who threw routes to Buckeyes prospects. Olave ran a variety of inside and outside routes to show teams he can be versatile at the next level and be a good schematic fit, no matter where he's selected. Wilson showcased the same athleticism that made him an elite prospect since he was in high school, and said Stroud working with the receivers to ensure everything was crisp for Ohio State's pro day. On one of his final throws of the day, the right-handed quarterback rolled left and launched a ball nearly 55 yards off of 1 foot to cap the workouts. And Wilson said that CJ is someone who is super special. He drops it in there and makes it easy as a receiver. That's something you want to hear if you are CJ Stroud. And if you are an NFL team scouting him out, and I imagine they do scout out prospects very early who are in college to see, who they are. And I think that CJ Stroud is very much an NFL-ready guy. He just has one more year that he has to play in college due to NCAA requirements. Wilson agreed with Olave's assessment of Stroud. He said it's a stark contrast from the perception that surrounded Stroud at the start of the year. Ryan Day agreed and pointed out that the same skeptics who question Stroud's throwing ability are the same ones who are already projecting Stroud as the top draft-eligible quarterback next year. A lot of Ohio State fans, and I saw it in my comment section, were so mad that he was starting, and they were doubting Ryan. They were even coming to the point where they were doubting Ryan Day. And at the beginning of the year, he did not look super great. I thought that maybe he was getting carried by his system and that he wasn't, great. But if he's a starting quarterback at Ohio State, at minimum, he's going to be above average. So I was said from the beginning, you gotta give him some time. He's inexperienced. Maybe he'll grow. but the progression he made by the end of the year did surprise me a little bit. And it's cool seeing players progress. And I'm saying that as a Michigan fan myself, who, obviously doesn't like Ohio State as a team, but their players, and Stroud in particular, they're admirable. There's a reason Stroud went to New York to be a Heisman finalist, and there's a reason that now he's projected to be one of the top, if not the top, draft-eligible quarterback next year. Day said getting some reps throwing at Pro Day gave Stroud a good foundation for when it's his turn to make a good impression on NFL scouts. Finally, Day said, it's the same thing that happened last year when he hadn't thrown a pass before. Nobody in the country knew who he was at this point, and now people do. So that's QJ Stroud. I'm going to link this article down below in the description so you can read it. And finally, we are going to read an article by BuckeyesWire.usatoday.com. Another NFL, based article that I wanted to read isn't exactly loading for whatever reason, but that's okay. This article is basically the same thing as the other article I wanted to read. And then we'll be done. So, wide receivers Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson were excellent. That's another point, and it kind of tied into how good QJ Stroud was as a QB at Pro Day is what the ESPN article was talking about, and I agree. Catching basically every pass, and it doesn't even matter, in a certain sense, the Pro Day and what they did just running routes. They've been doing it all season long. And Jackson Smith and Jigba isn't draft eligible either, but him plus Wilson and plus Olave were the best wide receiver core in the nation, and they just tore up everything in their path. They ran routes, they're speedy guys, they're adaptable. Wilson is a little short, but still, he's got that freaky athleticism that, everyone wants. Olave isn't as freakishly athletic as Wilson is, but he's tall and he's smart. And the fact that he came from a 3-star to this level shows that he has a high football IQ, shows that he's a hard worker. These wide receivers are excellent too. The minimum I expect is for them to be taken in the late first round, if not middle first round. They're that good of wide receivers. This article, we already talked about QJ Stroud, but we're going to talk about the receivers portion of this article. The Ohio State receivers wowed. The article says, you kind of knew it would be the case, but both Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave showed why they will both likely be taken in the first round of the draft. Olave was as smooth as ever and was a lead at tracking the deep ball. Wilson had the burst, body control, and hands, freaky athleticism that we've seen for the past 3 years. It'll be interesting to see which receiver goes off the board first, but I'd be surprised if both didn't cement their names being called on the first day in Vegas. Those two are going to be fun to watch at the next level. Yes, they will be. And you know what? It would be really nice if, I'm from Michigan, so Lions obviously, if the Lions could get one of these two. Either them or Drake London, or I forget the other receivers that are up on the board. But it would be nice if the Lions could get one of these guys, just briefly speaking, from a Lions perspective, as I am a Lions fan. That's probably the closest thing to it if I were to be highly invested in the NFL. And Pro Day, we've again already talked about this, but it's still good to, wrap things up. Pro Day showcased why Ohio State is elite. And Master Teague, actually, this is going to be the final thing we're going to read, perfectly embodies this statement, because Master Teague is someone who even I have said he's not the greatest running back. But let's read this and we can come to our own conclusions. If you are like me, you feel a little robbed of seeing what Master Teague could have been at Ohio State, had it not been for injuries and weird circumstances beyond his control. He was an athletic beast on Wednesday and had to leave the NFL guys with some things to think about as they pulled out of the parking lot. Not only does Master Teague look like he was chiseled up on Mount Olympus, but almost jumped out of the Woody Hayes Athletic Center, ran a blazing fast 40 for a guy as powerful as he is, and carried and conducted himself the way he had been accustomed to seeing from him. Don't be surprised if any NFL team takes a chance on Teague because of all that he brings to the table. And Teague, he looked good at parts in 2020, and 2019 as well. There have been times that he does look good and looks like he could be in the NFL, but he really never started. And I'm actually going to read some of Master Teague's pro day numbers. So Master Teague, his 40 time, it was a 4.44, 4.49. I imagine that's pretty fast for kind of the power back that he is. His 10 time was 1.54, his 20 was 2.59, his vertical was 36 inches. Wow. His board was 10 feet 11 inches. His bench, he got 27 reps on 225. His 3-cone drill was 6 seconds and 6.95 seconds, basically 7 seconds. And his 20-yard shuttle was 4.29 seconds. So Master Teague having a good showing despite being the third string running back. And Ohio State having a third string running back get drafted would be impressive as well, because that also shows development at the running back position, which Ohio State, since Ezekiel Elliott, well, actually, no, they've been really good and they've been elite. I almost forgot about J.K. Dobbins, but how can you forget about J.K. Dobbins? They've been elite at running back development, quarterback development, wide receiver development, offensive line development, defensive end development. Jeremy Ruckert is probably showcases that they're at least great at developing their tight ends. I mean, Ohio State, again, I can't give them enough praise for what they have done and proven so far. And what makes it even, better if you're an Ohio State fan, or worse if you're just another Big Ten fan who isn't an Ohio State fan, is Stroud is returning next year. Henderson, who is their starting running back and who will be an NFL player, probably taken on the first or second day, he is going to be returning. And Jackson Smith-Njigba, who might be better than both Wilson and Olave, is also returning. So Ohio State returning a lot of guys, just so much talent returning that will eventually go off to the NFL. And they're also producing, and there are a lot of guys departing who are going off to the NFL and who will likely have some long careers. And that's all I have to say for this video. The pro day for Ohio State, again, was just amazing, and it showcased why this program is a great football program. If you like this video, hit the like button, hit that subscribe button, comment your thoughts down below. And again, I cannot ask this enough, click that notification bell so you can get notified when I post content. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys around.